I want to come here today and I want to talk about alienation. Because I think alienation is such a big thing that nobody talks about. And maybe I think part of this, right off the bat, is that people talk about alienation, but they refer to it by a lot of different words, you know? The loneliness epidemic, hating your job, all these different ways that people refer to it, I think like can be summed up with alienation, despite people not really using the word. And to be honest, I think part of this is out of the fact that alienation oftentimes is not the right word, you know? I'm going to kind of use it here as a blanket term for a lot of these things, but, you know, using the word alienation, a general feeling of being disconnected from, you know, these things, whether it be your job, whether it be the people in your life, whatever, you know, it may be, is, you know, kind of a imprecise way to refer to it. But we are feeling disconnected, right? I think I've kind of almost, wouldn't say I've touched on it before, but I've come like really close. I've like almost roundabout touched on this in two Paint Talks. One was a little more recent. It was titled On Friends and Not Having Them. And I talked there about like the worst thing in the world is not having friends, but in my personal opinion, of course, having friends and feeling like you can't be yourself around them. And then I also talked about it in a much earlier Paint&Talk where I talked about why are we so connected yet so disconnected all at once, right? And I almost want to try here to wrap those up with a nice little bow into this topic of alienation, because I think it's like the biggest issue. And I think the word, like I use the word alienation very purposefully here, because I think it's an important word to know that we aren't using. I don't know why we're not using it. Again, sometimes I think it's because it's a little imprecise, but I think it's an important word because it as much as it's imprecise sometimes, a lot of the time it can very accurately describe what's going on right now and why people feel this way, why these things are happening. Once again, in my opinion, I always want to stress that in these Paint&Talks because, you know, I don't want to start every statement with saying, you know, in my opinion, but like, it should be a given, right? That these are just my opinion, all of these. And, you know, I think the place where I really started thinking about this recently, like the reason I wanted to come here and talk about today is, once again, with Paint&Talk. I noticed that making these videos where I'm just talking to the camera versus making other videos that I've made in the past, you know, whether it be on older channels where I've reviewed anime and manga, or on my newer channel where I do video essays on things, I really have never liked responding to comments before because it just felt so disconnected, you know? Like, I think it's the very corny thing to say, to be like, you know, I started YouTube to build community. And a lot of the times I think, I will be honest, when people say that, it's totally a flat out lie. You started YouTube to make money, not for that community. Even if you try and foster one, you know. And, but I really do try to cultivate a sense of community because, quite frankly, it gets lonely making videos and putting them out into the void. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird type of loneliness too, because you can have a ton of friends. You know, I've never been an especially lonely person, but the loneliest feeling in the world has always been for me making something and putting it out. And even if, you know, 100 people watch it, which is quite a lot of people, even though we don't think of it that way, you still just feel so lonely. Or, you know, those people that watch it comment, and they comment just about the topic, or, you know, they don't really say anything in the comments that is too, quite frankly, useful or interesting to you. And you end up feeling like you're making videos for a machine rather than for an audience. Which obviously I am making videos for a machine, but you don't want to feel that way because that makes the videos terrible to make. And I've always hated responding to comments for that reason, because I've never been able to cultivate that real sense of like, oh no, like somebody's watching right now. You know what I mean? Like we're 49 episodes into this, and right now, more than ever, when I'm talking to the camera, I feel like there's somebody on the other side of it, which is so cool. But it's interesting because I have had audiences that are larger than this. Like, I've known I'm going to put this out and an easy 200 people are going to watch it. Something like that, you know? but it still never felt like I was talking to anybody. And that's because, and this is, kind of a long tangent to get back to the topic here, I was alienated from the audience. I felt as though I wasn't part of this thing that I created on my own, right? And in large part, it's because I wasn't being as vulnerable as I should have been. I wasn't maybe responding how I should have been. There's a variety of factors you could point to here, but the most important fact is that I just was never really there, and that's why coming here now, I feel as though I'm so much more connected. I enjoy responding to comments because I feel like I'm talking to real people about real things, which is a new emotion for me as far as this whole content thing goes. And it got me thinking about alienation, because it's such a weird thing. It's such a specific word for that reason. You can be doing everything right in life, in, socially, in your job. You can be the perfect person in all regards. It's not a thing to critique. And you can still feel so far away and alienated from it all, And we've all been there. I pray that nobody in this audience has felt alienated in their entire life, because that's a very tough thing to feel. I don't think I've ever felt like that. I don't think I know anyone who's ever felt like that. But we've all felt alienation in one aspect of our life, It could be as simple as you feel alienated at your job, a general feeling of disconnect from your work. We don't really think about it like that, but I know a lot of people, got a lot of friends and stuff, they do, the normal corporate job where they're entering stuff into Excel spreadsheets or, doing whatever you will. And they feel terrible every day about what they do, even though it's you'd think it's not even who cares? You just got to go, you got to put some numbers in. And they're this is the most lonely, alienating, they typically use the word lonely, or boring or one of these things, but the reality is that's alienation. You feel like you're not even connected to the thing you're doing for 8 hours a day. And the usual response to this, somewhat understandably, is it's just a job, just get through it, go home and feel good then. And it's why should it be that way? Why do we have to accept the fact that you're gonna hate a whole third of your life, but why are you making a big fuss about it? I think there's clearly something not okay there, right? You shouldn't feel like you are, a whole distant being from what you do all day, every day. And it's such a tough thing to correct because it is, and this is, I don't use this word lightly because I don't like the word. I find it a little cringy, to be honest, but it is something of a spiritual thing to be alienated. You can't really, I could put my finger on solutions to being alienated from work, making sure that you have a job that you love is just the easiest one. Making sure that you work at a company whose mission you believe in and you feel like you're really doing something in a day. These are all solutions to the problem, but none of them address the root cause of this. And that's the tough part, because it's so hard to place your finger on what the root cause is, because that's what I personally think people have economic answers to it, which I don't really want to get into here because I'm not smart enough to discuss those answers. But I also would argue it's a deeply personal thing of what do you love? Why do you love it? I would imagine, I've never met him, and I kind of don't want to, but I'd imagine there's a guy out there who's really fulfilled entering info into Excel spreadsheets, who just loves the way those sheets move, or they find some sort of extreme pleasure in that. That's awesome. I don't want to, even though I don't know if he'd be the most fun guy ever, I don't want to shit on this fake guy I made up here. And everyone has a personal thing that they find great. The best thing people ever say about their job is literally just I don't, it's not the worst. It could be worse. And it's we're all settling in so many ways. Another big example of this is being alienated from the people around you. This is something I discussed in that episode on friends and not having them, where I said the worst is having a group of friends or having people in your life who you feel distant from when they're right next to you. That's alienation. That's so hard to solve, because the obvious answer, and something, if you're in that situation, I believe you should probably do, is you like go get some new friends, see if you can explore maybe some people who you could relate to a little bit more. But as far as answering why you don't relate, I think it's so hard. I've always found it to be so hard. The only explanation I've ever been able to come up with is this. I remember I want to say I was in high school maybe at the time of this, and I stopped hanging out with this group of friends. I was like, oh, where have they been? Well, I just stopped hanging out with those friends. I said, know how you feel better after eating a salad versus eating a burger from McDonald's, even though the salad didn't taste as good? I feel that exact way about hanging out with them. I have fun in the moment, but something's not right there, and I feel drained, and I feel like something's not right by the time I'm done hanging out with them. And it is such a, and I remember after I said that to my mom, she was like, oh, okay. Like, I could tell she was like, I get it, but like, I can relate, but also like, you kind of just said a bunch of words. And that's the tough part about it, right? Is, yeah, that is just a bunch of words. There's no real, I didn't really have an answer. It was just a feeling. And it's so abstract, but it also makes, if you've experienced it, it makes perfect sense, I think, to be like, oh no, they're great, I love them, but something's not right here, and it's one of the toughest things because all you can do is solve it. You can't think about it. You can't really do much about it except for escape or settle. And I think settling is one of the worst things you can do when alienation is the topic on the table. Because when you settle to be disconnected from one thing, you'll slowly be okay with being disconnected from everything. This is what I believe, at least, is that you'll eventually be in a state where it's you're okay with just settling as long as it gets you through the day. Almost like if let's say you go home when you're a kid to your parents and they go do you like, or it's your birthday coming up, right? They're asking you, do you like cars? And you just want to get through the conversation. You don't want to really have a real conversation. So every day when they ask you this, you go, yeah, I love cars. The next day, do you like monster trucks? Yeah, I love monster trucks. Do you like ninjas? Do you like cowboys? And the whole time you want a Barbie doll or something, I don't know. And eventually you'll be going home and it's your birthday and all you'll have is a bunch of stuff you don't like because you settled and were okay with being, slightly away from the things you were talking about in exchange for the ease and convenience of it all. And I think, this is how so many people live their lives, where it's yeah, no, sure, I'm fine with that. Just I'll do the Excel spreadsheets as long as I can go home and have the family, and then it's okay, my family won't be this, but as long as there's something here, that's fine. And I think that career is a big one where this happens. It's also in social circles, I don't really like these people, but hey, I'll be lonely if I don't settle right now, so I'll start hanging out with them every day. Who cares, right? I think these are places where this really happens, and eventually you're gonna look around one day and realize you're living somebody else's life. You're living a life of the you who was pretending that everything was fine when you always knew there was a little something wrong. You always felt a little bit strange about your surroundings. You always felt like something wasn't quite you with everything going on. But you never said anything. You just wanted to settle because it's easier to settle. It's so much easier to settle. Alienation is tough because it's just uncomfortable enough to notice, but not uncomfortable enough to run from, right? And it's so easy to settle, and then you settle, and eventually you settled one times too much, and now you're just not even living. You're not even living your own life anymore. And I would totally say I think this is how a lot of people are living. I look at people who never, they stopped trying to pursue their dreams, or they, did something. I think a lot of the times when I hear those interviews and stuff, people talk about doing it to make their parents proud, which is great. That's beautiful. But it's also at a certain point, when do you want to make yourself proud then? You know what I mean? I think it's great to do something for other people. I kind of go against the idea that no, you should live your life completely for you. I think there's a degree of fulfillment that can come of oh no, I really wanted this, my mom really wanted this to happen for our family, so I'm gonna try and do this. Or a degree of like, my friend really would like it if I did this, so I'll do it just for him. I think there's a degree of fulfillment that can come from that, but I think with that, you need to ask yourself, where am I in all this? How much of me is in this decision? And if it's none of me, how will I make sure there's some me in the decision I make tomorrow? I think that's extremely important because you can lose identity so fast. You can get lost in the fog so easily when you settle, when you let things keep happening, and when you allow yourself to be alienated from the people, the things, the objectives, the goals around you, whatever. It can, I think, and I don't know if this is technically true with like the definition of alienation, but I'll say it anyways. I do believe you can be alienated from anything. I fully do think that, because I just have seen too many people be alienated and call it something else, whether that be loneliness, whether that be whatever it is. I mean, there's a million things, right? I've seen it too many times to not think that like, no, you can really, this happens, and it happens easily, and it happens subtly, and it happens all at once one day. That phrase, like slowly then all at once, of like things will slowly happen, and it's almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that's what's gonna happen. But except like maybe the camel's back won't break, it'll just kind of fold and morph into a different back until it's not really a camel, and its sole purpose is to just carry straw. Anyways, the painting is finished, so I guess we can stop talking about all that now. What I wanted to do is, in the past, I've often, like if I have a really bad painting one day, what I'll try and do the next day is just like paint something super easy to give myself a win. But what I want to do is, for the painting after yesterday where I didn't like how it came out, I want to make sure I tried painting the same thing again, almost just out of like, not running from this one thing I really want to paint. Same deal as yesterday, not the best. I think the skeleton of the face was actually much better than I've ever done before, but the final construction here is not great. But overall, still, not the worst. I mean, it's definitely better than yesterday's, which is what matters, and it's better than the one of these I did all the way back when, which was only like 2 weeks ago, I think, so. Anyways, you guys know the drill. Go check this out over on the Instagram. Hope you got something out of today's discussion. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on anything discussed, because as I just said here, that's my favorite part of all this. And until tomorrow, guys, gals, and pals, this has been Paint and Talk episode 49. I'm here every morning painting and talking with you all. I'll see you tomorrow for Paint and Talk 50.